They'd cling to me, hugging so tightly, as if terrified I might vanish too. One evening, Nora looked up, her big, round eyes full of a heartbreaking question. "Daddy, is Mommy mad because I wasn't good? Is that why she left us?" My heart fractured. I held her, choking back tears, promising her that Mommy loved them more than anything, that she was just in a faraway place, watching over us. But inside, a terrifying question echoed. How could I possibly be enough for these two? How could I be their pillar, their rock, like Courtney had been? The pressure became unbearable. Sleep became a distant memory. My mind was weary, my body drained. Some days, I'd stand in the stable, reins in hand, my vision blurring from sheer exhaustion. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I couldn't. In my desperation, I thought of my parents, the only other family I had left. Pride had always been important to me, but for Noah and Nora, I was willing to swallow it whole. One afternoon, I drove to their elegant Louisville mansion, a place that, despite growing up there, always felt cold and foreign. When my mother, Loretta, opened the door, her eyes flickered with surprise, but not a trace of warmth. "Barrett, what are you doing here?" Her voice was like ice. I took a shaky breath. "Mom, I need help. I'm raising Noah and Nora alone. I'm exhausted. I was hoping you and Dad could help a little. Maybe watch the kids sometimes." Loretta's face remained utterly unmoved. "Barrett, you know how busy we are. We're taking care of Miguel's children. Your brother needs us more right now. Besides, you chose your path, didn't you? When you married that girl." She trailed off, but I heard the unspoken judgment, the old resentment against Courtney. A knife twisted in my heart. I looked at my father, Curtis, pleading silently for him to intervene. He simply shook his head. "Barrett, you're a man. You need to handle this yourself. Don't bother us." I don't remember leaving that house. Their cold, dismissive words echoed in my mind, mingling with years of past slights. They had always rejected Courtney, seeing her as beneath our prestigious family name. They had always favored Miguel, my younger brother, whose exaggerated successes they constantly paraded. To them, I was the failure, the one who threw away a bright future for love. I pulled over to a grassy field, shut off the engine, and just sat. Tears came, not from weakness, but from the crushing realization of my utter solitude. Courtney, the only one who truly understood me, who always said we'd face everything together, was gone. Now, it was just me and my two precious angels. But how could I protect them when my own blood had turned their backs? Back home, I held Noah and Nora as they slept, oblivious to their father's silent battle. In the darkness, I whispered to Courtney, as if she were still there. "What do I do, my love? How can I be strong enough to keep our children safe?" There was no answer. Only the wind whistling through the window, a chilling reminder of the long, arduous road ahead. I didn't know then that a glimmer of light was waiting, not from my family, but from those I least expected. Leaving my parents' house that day, my heart was a lead weight. I felt like a lost soul adrift in a barren field, utterly without an anchor. Noah and Nora were the only reason I didn't collapse, but I couldn't deny it. I couldn't go on alone. I needed help. Anyone. And then, like a quiet whisper in the storm, I thought of Leonard and Frances Fletcher, Courtney's parents. I hesitated. For a long, agonizing time. They lived in a humble house, deep in rural Kentucky, where red dirt roads snaked through fields of wheat. Courtney had always said her parents weren't rich, but their hearts were vast, always open. I was terrified of being a burden. But the image of Noah and Nora's innocent eyes, looking at me each night, left me no choice. My hands shaking, I dialed their number. "Barrett." Frances's voice was warm, but laced with immediate concern. "Is something wrong, dear?" I took a deep, shuddering breath. "Mom, I don't know how to say this, but I'm really struggling. I can't take care of Noah and Nora alone. I need help." There was a pause. Then, Frances's voice, thick with emotion, cut through my despair. "Barrett, you don't need to say anything more. Just bring the kids here. Our home is your home." Her words were a warm breeze, melting the ice around my heart. I quickly packed a few things, loaded Noah and Nora into my old pickup truck, and drove. The hour-long journey felt like an eternity, filled with anxiety. Was I doing the right thing? Was I taking advantage? But when I pulled up to their small wooden house, its porch draped in climbing vines, Frances was already there. Her arms opened wide, her eyes shining with pure, unadulterated sincerity. "Come in, Barrett," she said, hugging me tightly, as if I were her own son. Leonard, his silver hair falling across his forehead, offered a gentle smile. He patted my shoulder, then knelt to embrace Noah and Nora, who nestled into his arms as if they'd done it 1,000 times. Their house wasn't grand. Just a 2-bedroom wooden home, creaky floors, and the comforting scent of freshly baked bread. But from the moment I stepped inside, I felt a warmth I hadn't known since Courtney left. Frances immediately began cooking a simple, hearty dinner: mashed potatoes, stewed beans, golden fried chicken. Noah and Nora, who had been so withdrawn, slowly began to chat, listening as Frances shared stories of Courtney's childhood, how she used to chase rabbits through the fields. "Courtney was a lot like little Nora," Frances said, ruffling Nora's hair, her eyes sparkling. "Just look at that smile." Watching them, my heart ached with tenderness, but also with a sharp, renewed pain as I contrasted this boundless love with my own parents' icy distance. Curtis and Loretta had never hugged my children like this, never told them stories, never simply asked how they were. To them, my kids were a constant reminder of my mistake. But here, in this small house, Leonard and Frances didn't just treat me as a son-in-law, they treated me as a true son. I officially moved in. They adamantly refused any rent or contribution, despite my protests. "Barrett, your family. No matter what, you belong here," Leonard said, his voice firm. "Family doesn't keep score." Frances became a second mother to Noah and Nora. Every morning, she'd wake early, prepare breakfast, braid Nora's hair, teach Noah to tie his shoes. Leonard, despite his age, patiently drove them to school in his old pickup. One day, I saw him under an oak tree, teaching Noah to carve a small wooden boat, while Nora colored it beside him. Tears streamed down my face. This was it. This was everything Courtney had ever wanted for our children, to grow up surrounded by love, in these simple, meaningful moments. I continued working at Harvey's ranch. The work was still grueling, but coming home each evening, I was no longer alone. Their stories, their presence, not only helped me forget my exhaustion, but filled me with a powerful, renewed strength, the undeniable strength of family. Yet, some nights, as Noah and Nora slept, I'd sit on the porch, staring out at the dark fields. The wound of losing Courtney still ached, and the cold memories of my parents, their indifference, their contempt, would resurface, leaving a bitter taste. I remembered begging for help, the detached tone in Loretta's voice, the dismissive shake of Curtis's head. The stark contrast between Leonard and Frances's boundless love and my parents' emotional distance broke my heart all over again. One evening, Frances found me there. She came out with an old blanket, draping it gently over my shoulders. "It's chilly, Barrett," she said, sitting beside me. I just lowered my head. "What's on your mind, dear? You can tell me." I sighed, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't understand why my own parents treat me like this. I've tried everything, but I'm never good enough for them. And you treat me like your own son, even though I'm just your son-in-law. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Frances took my hand, her eyes gentle yet firm. "Barrett, you don't owe us anything. You are Courtney's husband, the father of Noah and Nora. To us, you are family, and family doesn't need repayment. Just love. That's enough." Her words were a sudden, warming flame in my frozen heart. I looked at her, then at the moonlit fields. In that moment, a silent vow formed, etched deep into my soul, to Courtney, to Leonard and Frances, and to myself. One day, I would repay them. I would care for them, honor them, just as they had opened their arms and saved my children and me in our darkest hour. I would ensure Noah and Nora grew up in a complete family, surrounded by unconditional love, even without their mother by their side. The Fletcher family, despite their simple life, overflowed with love. Their modest wooden house, their humble meals shared around the fireplace. It was a world away from the cold indifference of the Winslow household. I remembered my biological parents' extravagant parties, their endless boasting about Miguel's achievements, which I knew were often exaggerated. For them, pride and appearances were everything. But here, in this home, I learned that true value lay in genuine connection and selfless sharing. Those months, though incredibly difficult, were filled with invaluable lessons. I learned to meticulously manage every cent of my meager wages, ensuring enough for my children and to contribute to the household. I was profoundly grateful for every meal Frances cooked, every school run Leonard made. Most importantly, I cultivated a fierce determination. I had to build a better life, not just for Noah and Nora, but for Leonard and Frances, who had given me a home when I thought we'd lost everything. The road ahead was long, but with the Fletcher family's love, I finally believed I could do it. I would not let Courtney down, nor would I let those who loved me suffer. This promise was etched into my heart, and I was determined to make it a reality. I needed a breakthrough, an opportunity to change everything. An opportunity one never imagined would come so quickly, in a way I could never have anticipated. One crisp autumn morning, as cool Kentucky breezes swept through the fields, Mr. Harvey, my kind boss, called me into his small office. His face was weathered from years under the sun, but his eyes always held a genuine sincerity. "Barrett," he said, "there's a big horse fair in Lexington this weekend. I want you with me. You're the best I've got with horses. I need you to showcase our young stock." I was stunned. Mr. Harvey rarely took me off the ranch. My world was the stables, not high-stakes events buzzing with wealthy investors and polished horse traders. I nodded, my heart churning with unease. Crowds, fancy suits, smooth talk, none of it was my world. But this was a chance to learn, and I wouldn't let him down. On the day of the fair, dressed in the cleanest shirt Frances had ironed and my old straw hat, I followed Mr. Harvey to Lexington. The fair was a vibrant explosion of energy, the neighing of horses, laughter, chatter, the earthy scent of hay mingling with food. Purebred horses, their coats gleaming, paraded by to applause. I stood by Mr. Harvey, helping introduce our young horses, answering questions about their care. It came naturally to me. Horses weren't just my job, they were my deep, abiding passion. While checking a young horse's hooves, a deep, warm voice spoke behind me. "You handle those horses with great care. Not many people pay attention to the details like that." I turned to see an older man, silver-haired, in a simple but elegant suit. He introduced himself as Clinton McGraw, a retired investor still passionate about horse racing. I was flustered and used to being noticed, but his sharp, friendly eyes put me at ease. We started talking, and I quickly realized he was different. No boasting, no airs. He asked about my methods, my challenges, even about my life. I hadn't intended to share much, but something about him made me open up. I told him about Courtney, the searing pain of losing her, about Noah and Nora, and my desperate struggle to hold our little family together. He listened without interruption, nodding, asking thoughtful questions. When I finished, he looked at me, his gaze seeming to peer directly into my soul. "You've got grit, Barrett," he said, "and you've got talent. I've been in this industry long enough to recognize potential. Have you ever thought about starting your own horse ranch?" His question hit me like a physical blow. My own ranch. It was a dream so impossibly grand, I'd never even dared to entertain it. I was just a farmer, barely scraping by. I shook my head, a wry smile on my face. "Mr. McGraw, I don't have the money, and I certainly don't have anyone backing me. I know horses, but starting a ranch, that's simply out of my reach." He smiled, unfazed. "Barrett, money isn't the biggest issue. Will and talent, those are what truly matter. I want to help you. I'll invest a sum to get you started. Not a fortune, but enough for you to give it a shot. What do you say?" I stood there, speechless. A stranger, a man I'd known for less than an hour, was offering to help me achieve the biggest dream of my life. I wanted to scream yes, but fear gripped me. Fear of failure. Fear of letting Mr. McGraw down. Fear that I simply wasn't good enough. I thanked him, took his number, and promised to think. That evening, I returned home, my mind a whirlwind. Noah and Nora were playing in the yard. Frances was cooking. I sat with Leonard at the dining table and poured out the story of Mr. McGraw's offer. "I don't know if I should take this chance," I confessed, my voice trembling. "If I fail, I could lose everything. I don't want to disappoint you, Mom, or the kids." Leonard looked at me, his eyes steady and deep. "Barrett, life is a gamble. But if you don't dare to try, you'll never know if you could have one. Courtney always believed in you. She wanted you to live fully, for yourself and for the kids. Be strong, son." Frances, overhearing, came from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Barrett," she said, "I know you're scared, But look how much you've already overcome. You didn't give up when you lost Courtney, when you were raising the kids alone. You have talent, and now someone wants to help you. Don't let fear stand in your way." Their words were a powerful gust of wind, clearing the fog from my mind. I sat up all night, thinking of Courtney, of the dreams we'd shared. She had always told me I could do more than I thought. "You're the best with horses, Barrett," she'd said, her eyes sparkling. "One day you'll have your own ranch." I looked up at the starry Kentucky sky, feeling as though she was there, urging me on. And I made my decision. I would take this chance. The next morning, my heart heavy but resolute, I walked into Mr. Harvey's office. "Sir," I said, taking a deep breath, "I'd like to resign. I'm going to try starting my own horse ranch." Mr. Harvey's eyes flickered with surprise, then softened with a touch of regret. "Barrett," he said, "you're the best we've got. I don't want to lose you. But if this is your dream, I support you. If you ever need anything, my door is always open." I thanked him, a profound weight lifting from my shoulders. My own blood family had abandoned me, but life, I realized, had still offered me people willing to lend a hand. Mr. Harvey, Mr. McGraw, and especially Leonard and Francis. By the way, if you're still with me on this roller coaster of a story, and if my journey has resonated even a little, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. More raw, unbelievable tales of resilience and unexpected turns are always coming. Your support truly means the world. A few days later, I met Clinton McGraw in a small Lexington cafe. Sitting across from him in my worn-out shirt and dusty boots, I felt acutely aware of my humble beginnings next to this sharp, silver-haired man. He wasted no time. After discussing my rudimentary plans, he set down his coffee cup. "Barrett, I'm investing $1 million to start your ranch. In return, I want 30% equity. This isn't a gift. It's a gamble. I believe in you, but you have to prove I chose the right person. $1 million. The sum echoed in my head, simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. I'd never seen anything close to that kind of money. Never truly believed I'd have the chance to make this dream real. "Thank you, Mr. McGraw," I managed, trying to keep my voice steady. "I won't let you down." And so, my entrepreneurial journey began. I found a small plot of land on Lexington's outskirts, not vast, but enough for a modest stable. With my own hands, I hammered wooden planks, erected fences, and built the very structures to house my future. Every swing of the hammer, every bead of sweat that fell, was a stark reminder. This is your one shot. You cannot fail. I bought a few affordable young horses, overlooked by larger ranches, believing that with proper care and training, they could become something special. But reality, as it always does, hit hard. Dreams are never easy. The costs of raising horses, feed, medicine, equipment, seasonal help, were far higher than I'd imagined. Each bill piling on the kitchen table was a jab, a chilling reminder that Mr. McGraw's million could vanish faster than I thought if I wasn't meticulously careful. My routine became brutal. Up at 4 a.m. in pitch darkness, feeding horses, cleaning stables, health checks, training them myself. Some days, my body screamed for rest. My hands bled from reins, my back ached from hauling hay. In the golden afternoon sunlight, I'd sometimes just stand, watching my young horses, a gnawing doubt creeping in. Am I truly on the right path, or just chasing a pipe dream? But whenever exhaustion and doubt threatened to consume me, images of Noah and Nora flashed in my mind. Their bright smiles in Leonard and Francis's yard. Francis's encouraging gaze as she placed a hot meal before me. Leonard's firm pat. "You'll make it, Barrett." Those moments were the only fuel that kept me going. I wasn't doing this just for myself, but for my children, for the Fletcher family, and for Courtney, who always believed I could achieve something great. Then, a gut-wrenching setback. One morning, while training a chestnut mare named Starlight, a horse I had such high hopes for, she suddenly stumbled. A pained whinny tore through the air. My heart pounded as I rushed to her. Starlight lay on the ground, her front leg terribly swollen. I called the vet, but the news was a brutal storm, a broken bone. Her chances of a full recovery, especially for racing, were slim to none. I sank to the stable floor, head in my hands, feeling my world collapse. Starlight wasn't just a horse. She was my hope, tangible proof that I could make this investment work. I had poured so much time, effort, and precious money into her. Now, it all seemed to vanish. Tears came, not from weakness, but from the crushing weight of failure. I had failed Mr. McGraw. I had failed the Fletchers. I had failed Courtney. I had failed myself. At that moment, I heard footsteps. Mr. McGraw appeared, his tall, lean figure casting a long shadow. I quickly wiped my tears, trying to stand, but he raised a hand. "Sit down, Barrett," he said, his voice calm, utterly devoid of reproach. He sat beside me, watching Starlight as the vet worked. "Failure," he mused, "is the price of experience. If you can't get through this lesson, you'll never stand tall in this business. Horses, like life, don't always go the way you plan. But the good ones aren't those who never fail. They're the ones who get back up." His words were a ray of light, piercing the suffocating darkness. I looked at him, feeling a mix of shame and profound gratitude. He didn't scold me. He didn't threaten to pull his investment. He simply showed me that failure was part of the journey. I nodded, clenching my fists, determined not to let this moment define me. In the days that followed, another unexpected kindness. Mr. Harvey, my old boss, visited. He brought homemade cookies from his wife and an old, leather-bound notebook filled with years of his ranch management experience. "You're doing well, Barrett," he said, his voice full of encouragement. "But running a ranch isn't just about horses. It's balancing expenses, choosing the right people, and keeping your spirit strong." He spent the afternoon sharing invaluable tips, from cost-effective feed to spotting early signs of illness. His help, though practical, was a powerful boost to my morale. From those failures and encouragements, I gradually forged resilience. I learned to accept loss, to rise after every fall. Starlight couldn't race, but I cared for her diligently, hoping she could still be a healthy, valuable horse. I kept working, kept learning, and slowly, a faint light began to appear at the end of the long, dark road. My small ranch, still rough around the edges, was beginning to bloom into a place of promise. Each morning, I rose before the sun, stars still glittering in the Kentucky sky. I'd step into the stable, inhaling the scents of hay and damp earth, feeling my heart beat in rhythm with the gentle breaths of the horses. I'd learned to manage my time with brutal efficiency, breaking tasks into manageable pieces. I cared for each young horse with the same meticulous attention I gave Noah and Nora. Hours were spent training, observing every stride, every flick of a tail, searching for ways to unlock their hidden potential. Watching them gallop across the small field, a quiet pride swelled within me. I was building something real, something greater than myself. After months of relentless struggle, those efforts finally began to bear fruit. One afternoon, I took Dusty, a striking silver-gray stallion, to a small local race. It wasn't a grand event, just a competition for local ranches. I didn't expect much, only hoping Dusty would gain experience. But as the race began, I stood by the fence, heart hammering, watching Dusty surge forward, overtaking competitors with an unexpected power. When he crossed the finish line in third place, the crowd erupted, and I stood there, stunned, hardly believing my eyes. My first victory. Modest, yes, but to me, it was a blinding ray of sunlight piercing through dark clouds. Word of Dusty's performance spread quickly through Kentucky's tight-knit horse breeding community. My name, Barrett Winslow, began to be whispered, no longer as a hired hand, but as a promising horse trainer. Opportunities, small at first, began to trickle in. One morning, while cleaning the stables, a middle-aged man drove up. He owned a small ranch nearby and wanted me to train one of his young horses. "I heard about your Dusty," he said, his eyes full of confidence. "You've got talent. I want to see what you can do with mine." I could hardly believe it. For the first time, someone had sought me out, trusted me, and was willing to pay for my skills. I agreed, a knot of worry still in my stomach about meeting expectations. But as he left, gripping the reins in the stable, I felt a new door swing open. Soon, others followed, inquiring about buying horses or hiring me for training. Revenue began to come in, enough to cover expenses and ease the suffocating financial pressure. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. These changes weren't just happening at the ranch. Noah and Nora, growing older, became an integral part of this new life. On weekends, they'd scamper out, little buckets in hand, eager to help feed the horses. Noah loved brushing Ember, one of our horses, while Nora perched on the fence, meticulously coloring drawings of the horses. One day, she handed me a picture, a golden horse, a man in a straw hat, and two small children. "This is you, Noah, and me," she beamed. "We're a team, right, Daddy?" I hugged her tight, tears blurring my vision. "That's right, sweetheart. We're a team." Watching them amidst these hardships, I realized that despite our material struggles, they had a home. Not just with Leonard and Francis, but here, among these stables and fields. The ranch wasn't just my dream. It was a place where my children learned that life, though tough, is always worth fighting for. Leonard and Francis, witnessing my progress, couldn't hide their pride. One evening, returning home, Francis led me to the porch where she and Leonard were sipping tea. "Barrett," she said, her eyes sparkling, "I heard the neighbors talking about you today. They said you're making something truly special of that ranch." "I'm so proud." Leonard nodded, adding, "You're not just our son-in-law, Barrett. You're our son." Their words left me speechless. I bowed my head, trying to hide the rush of emotion. I don't know how to thank you both," I managed. "Without you, the kids and I wouldn't be here today." Frances took my hand, her voice gentle. "Don't say that, dear. We're family." Their words filled me with an indescribable happiness. My life seemed to take on brighter colors. Mr. McGraw visited the ranch. He walked through the stables, his sharp eyes glinting with satisfaction. "You're doing well, Barrett," he said, patting Dusty. "Your win was a good start, but remember, this is just the beginning. Reputation keeps clients coming back. Keep working hard, and you'll go far." His encouragement fueled my resolve. He hadn't just invested money, he'd invested his trust, and I was determined not to let him down. As the sun set, painting the Kentucky fields in hues of gold, I stood in the stable, the scent of hay, the soft neighs, enveloping me. A sigh of relief escaped me. The road ahead was long, challenges would come, but I had taken my first solid steps. I looked out at the golden fields and whispered to Courtney, "Do you see, my love? I'm doing it. For you, for our kids, and for our family." Following Dusty's victory, my small ranch truly began to blossom. I poured my heart into training Ember, the horse Noah adored, a fiery red mare with deep, coal-bright eyes. I saw her raw strength, her untamed spirit, from our very first training sessions. Hours each day, I refined her strides, taught her to clear obstacles, striving to unlock her full potential. Then came a bigger opportunity, a regional race in a neighboring county, drawing ranches from all over Kentucky. I entered Ember, not daring to hope for too much, but deep down, I believed she could do something extraordinary. On race day, my hands clenched, my heart hammered against my ribs. The starting gun fired. Ember surged forward, her powerful strides devouring the track. The crowd roared, and I could barely breathe as I watched her overtake competitor after competitor. When Ember crossed the finish line in second place, I erupted in a shout, unable to contain the overwhelming rush of emotion. It wasn't just Ember's victory, it was mine. A triumph forged from months of exhaustion, sleepless nights, and the unwavering faith I had placed in myself. News of Ember's success spread like wildfire. The local papers started mentioning my name, Barrett Winslow, as an inspiring story. A man who started with nothing, lost his wife, raised 2 children alone, and now owned a promising horse ranch. One morning, a young reporter showed up, camera in hand, asking about my journey. Unaccustomed to such attention, I still opened up, sharing the raw truth about Courtney, Noah, Nora, the grueling days, and how the Fletcher family and Mr. McGraw had helped me rise again. When the article was published, people began calling my place Winslow Ranch, as if it had always been a trusted name in Kentucky's horse breeding community. I felt a surge of pride, but also astonishment. Just months ago, I was a desperate man, lost and unsure of tomorrow. Now, I had a ranch, a growing reputation, and a modest income that allowed me to finally breathe. But just as a glimmer of true peace settled over me, a dark shadow from my past unexpectedly returned, my biological family. That afternoon, as I checked the fences, a sleek, expensive car pulled up to the gate. My parents' car, Curtis and Loretta Winslow. They stepped out, along with Miguel, my younger brother, whom I hadn't seen since Courtney's funeral. I stood tall, forcing myself to remain calm, but inside, a storm of fury and hurt churned. What were they doing here? After years of icy silence, after turning their backs when I needed them most, why now? Barrett, Loretta began, her voice artificially sweet. We heard you're doing so well. We just wanted to visit, see how you and Noah and Nora are. I nodded, inviting them into the small house near the ranch where the kids and I sometimes stayed. Noah and Nora were playing in the yard, and when they saw their grandparents, they hesitated, not rushing forward for hugs as they did with Leonard and Francis. Curtis surveyed the simple wooden walls of my home, his eyes appraising, as if judging its worth. This ranch, it looks decent, he said, attempting warmth, but his tone dripped with condescension. You're my son, Barrett. No matter what, you should remember your roots. Family is the most important thing, you know. Roots. Family. The words rang in my head like a bitter, cruel joke. I gripped the edge of the table, my chest tight with a familiar ache. I remembered standing at their door, begging for help after Courtney's death, when Noah and Nora were too young to understand. Curtis had looked at me with those cold, dismissive eyes, telling me to handle it like a man. Now, with Winslow Ranch gaining recognition and the press hailing me as an inspiring story, now they showed up, talking about family as if they'd never abandoned me. Loretta, in her expensive silk dress and perfectly coiffed hair, chimed in, her voice sweet but laced with reproach. Barrett, really, you haven't visited us in so long that we've been worried about you. You've been so busy with the ranch, but family is still where you belong, isn't it? I struggled to keep my face composed, but inside, a volcanic anger erupted. Worried about me? When? When I was exhausted, barely able to raise 2 children alone. When I knocked on their door, pleading for help, only to be met with icy indifference. I wanted to shout, to unleash years of pent-up resentment. But then I glanced at Noah and Nora, sitting quietly in the corner, their wide eyes watching me, concerned. For their sake, I had to stay calm. But Miguel, my brother, pushed further. He sat opposite me, his hands clasped, a forced smile failing to hide his underlying tension. Barrett, he said, feigning friendliness, I hear your ranch is doing great. The Louisville race, that article in the Lexington Herald, you're really making waves. I was thinking, maybe we could work together? I've got some ideas. With a bit of capital, we could really scale things up. Brothers working together, we'd be unstoppable. I looked at Miguel, and for the first time, I saw the true falseness in his eyes. Miguel, my parents' golden child, whose city business ventures I knew had quietly failed. He wasn't here to congratulate me. He was here to take advantage. The pressure from them grew, an invisible wall closing in. Curtis droned on about family duty. Loretta sighed dramatically, subtly blaming me for keeping my distance. And Miguel, with increasing urgency, repeated his partnership pitch. I felt utterly cornered, my heart pounding, my mind reeling with anger and crushing disappointment. Then, a small, but incredibly resolute voice cut through the stifling air. Noah, my 7-year-old son sprang up from his wooden chair, fists clenched, eyes blazing with a defiant determination. You don't care about Dad, he cried, his voice trembling but unwavering, like a tiny, fierce flame in a storm. When Mom died, Dad came to you for help, but you didn't want him. You only cared about Uncle Miguel. Now that Dad's doing well, you show up? You just want his money. The room fell silent, as if time itself had frozen. I stared at Noah, stunned by my son's incredible courage. His messy brown hair, his clear, defiant eyes, small, but unyielding, as if carrying Courtney's indomitable spirit. In his gaze, I saw my wife. Her honesty, her refusal to bow to injustice, her fearlessness. My heart ached with both pride and sorrow, realizing a 7-year-old had just spoken the words I should have said years ago. Curtis and Loretta blanched. Curtis opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Only a glare of anger mixed with utter embarrassment directed at Noah. Loretta clutched her expensive purse, her lips pressed tight, trying to suppress her shame. But Miguel, his face scarlet with fury, leapt to his feet, pointing a furious finger at Noah. You disrespectful brat, he shrieked, his voice shrill. How dare you talk to your grandparents like that? No manners at all. His words were the final straw. I could no longer stay silent. I stepped in front of Noah, shielding my son. I looked directly into the eyes of Curtis, Loretta, and Miguel, my voice firm, unwavering, and dangerously calm. Enough. Noah's right. When I needed you most, when I lost Courtney, when I was raising 2 kids alone, you turned your backs. You never treated me like family. I don't need you anymore. I want you to leave. Now." The air in the room was heavy as stone. Curtis stared at me, his eyes flashing with anger and shame, but he remained silent. Loretta looked down, her hands trembling, wanting to speak, but unable to. Miguel muttered a curse under his breath and stormed out, the wooden door slamming violently behind him. Curtis and Loretta slowly rose, avoiding my gaze, avoiding Noah and Nora, and left in silence. The sound of their car engine faded into the distance, leaving behind a profound, heavy, but ultimately liberating quiet. I knelt, hugging Noah tightly, feeling his small heart pounding against my chest. "Thank you, son," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "You were so brave." Noah nestled into me, silent, but I knew he understood. He had just protected our little family. Nora ran over, wrapping her arms around me. And in that moment, I felt a new, incredible strength, the strength of love and unity. But deep inside, the pain lingered. It hurt to realize that my biological family, whom I had once desperately hoped would be my support, only appeared when they smelled money and fame. They were no longer my family. My true family was Noah, Nora, Leonard, Francis, and every single person who had stood by me when I had nothing but pain and empty hands. After the intense confrontation with my biological family, I plunged myself back into work. I poured every ounce of my energy into the ranch, finding solace in the horses. Ember continued her winning streak, not just at local races, but at larger competitions, putting Winslow Ranch on the map. Another horse, Rusty, began to shine, taking first place in a major Louisville race. The name Winslow Ranch was growing, and with it, more contracts, training horses for other ranches, selling the young stock I'd carefully raised. Each deal was a vital step forward, stabilizing our finances, allowing me to expand the stables. But I never anticipated that these successes would catch the eye of a true titan in the horse racing industry, Equine Ventures. Their name was revered, almost legendary. One morning, as I checked Rusty's health, a sleek black car glided through our gate. 2 men in sharp suits emerged. One introduced himself as James Carver, the CEO of Equine Ventures. They wasted no time with pleasantries. After a thorough tour of the ranch, admiring the horses and hearing my training philosophy, Carver looked me dead in the eye. "Barrett," he said, "we're incredibly impressed with what you've built. Winslow Ranch is a rough diamond. We want to buy the entire operation for $100 million. You'd stay on as manager, at least until you're 60. What do you say?" I stood there, utterly stunned. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. $100 million. The number echoed in my head, overwhelming, dizzying. I, a simple farmer, had never dared to dream of such an offer. Mumbled a thank you, asked for time to think, and watched them drive away, my mind reeling. That night, sleep was impossible. My thoughts were a chaotic storm. $100 million. It could change everything. I could secure a future for Noah and Nora, top schools, a life free from financial worry. I could finally repay Leonard and Francis, buy them a beautiful, comfortable home, ensure their golden years were peaceful. But a profound fear gripped me too. Winslow Ranch was my life's work, the dream Courtney and I had cherished. If I sold it, would I lose my freedom? My control over the horses I had poured my sweat, blood, and tears into? Would I still be Barrett Winslow, or just another cog in a giant corporate machine? The next few days were an agony of decision. I couldn't make this choice alone. I turned to those I trusted most. First, Leonard and Francis. Sitting in their familiar kitchen, I recounted the entire story. Francis listened, her hands clasped tight, her eyes gentle but laced with concern. "Barrett," she said softly, "I know this ranch is your heart and soul. But think of Noah and Nora. An opportunity like this doesn't come twice.